6B, we're going to talk about binomial probabilities. So in our last lesson, we talked about looking at an experiment and saying whether or not it was a binomial experiment. Now we're going to look at some binomial experiments and actually calculate probabilities. Okay, so 3 different kinds of probabilities that we're going to look at. The probability that x is equal to some number, less than some number, or greater than or equal to some number. So for example, if I'm going to flip a coin 10 times, probability that I get exactly 4 tails, less than 4 tails, or at least 4 tails. So those are the 3 different kinds of probability that you're going to need to find. Okay, so here's our example that we're going to look at. 70% of statistics students turn their practice problems in on time. Out of Ms. Speak's 50 stat students, what is the probability that 40 students do their 6A practice on time? Okay, so obviously this 70% is a made-up statistic because you guys don't turn that many of you don't turn it in on time, but we'll go with it for this. Okay, so question number 1, is this a binomial experiment? Okay, remember we have 3 requirements for a binomial experiment: a set number of trials, which we have because we have 50 students. Okay, only 2 outcomes, success or failure. So that makes sense. Either you turn it in on time or you don't. And then independence. Each student is like its own individual person. You guys can all decide whether or not you're going to do your practice problems on time individually. So yes, this is a binomial experiment. Okay, define the random variable x. Well, it asks how many students do their practice on time. So the x is going to be the number of students, okay, who complete their practice problems on time. And I'm just going to abbreviate for the sake of time. Okay, so number of students who do their practice problems on time. And then we're going to use a graphing calculator. So the steps for our graphing calculator are here, okay? You guys are going to want to use Desmos. I can show you how to do it like on the Casio, but Desmos is going to be so much easier. So here are the steps, and we'll go through this together. So let me pull up Desmos. Okay, so you're going to click on the keyboard, and then functions, and then distributions, and binomial. Okay, and then Desmos asks you for 2 things: the number of trials and the success probability. Okay, so in our practice problems, stats practice problems problem, okay, the number of trials was 50. There were 50 students, and the success probability was 70%. As a decimal, that's 0.7. Okay, that's how many people did their practice problems on time. And then we want to check this box that says find cumulative probability. Okay, because otherwise we would have to click on these little dots and add things up, and it would be very time consuming. So the probability that exactly 40 out of 50 students do their practice problems on time, we want Desmos to tell us what's the probability of exactly 40. Okay, so we put a min and a max of 40, and there's our probability right there, 0.0386. Okay, let's say we wanted a probability of at least 40. Okay, so we would want between 40 and 50. All right, so the probability that between 40 and 50, or at least 40 students do it, is 0.0789. All right, and then the last type of question that you're going to have to answer is less than 40. Okay, so anything less than 40. So my min would be 0. My max is going to be 39. All right, and the reason it's 39 and not 40 is less than 40 does not include 40. Okay, so I only want from 0 to 39 because those are the numbers that are less than 40. And there's my probability right there. Okay, so I want you to take a second and look at this example. All right, store has 560-page art supply catalog. 8 of them have signature artists. We randomly sample 100 pages from the catalog. Okay, X is the number of pages with signature artists. Find the following probabilities. Okay, so you're going to go to Desmos and try this on your own. Okay, remember in Desmos, we need to put in N and P. Okay, so N is the number of trials. Our sample size, we're taking 100 pages. P is the probability of getting a signature artist. Now, sometimes they'll give you a percentage. In this case, they just told us it's 8 of those pages out of the 560. So P is 8 over 560. You can type this in Desmos just like this. Just type 8 over 560. You do not have to convert it to a decimal. Okay, so I want you to pause here, take a second, try these 3 questions, and then come back and I'll show you the answers. Okay, so that's what the answers should have been. Okay, from Desmos. If you have questions about that, let me know, and you should be working on your 6B practice problems.